Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Corruption, Crime, and Compliance. I'm Michael Volkov, and today we're going to focus on another AI risk area that is growing rapidly and that many companies are underestimating. That is third-party AI risk. The reality is definitely present, even if your company is careful about how it uses AI internally. Your vendors may not be, and that creates a new and significant compliance exposure. And this comes after we've all spent time on building third-party risk management programs and adding to that cybersecurity concerns. Now we have to add again for significant risk with third parties, which is AI. So AI is now embedded across the vendor ecosystem. Think about SaaS providers. Think about customer support platforms, analytics tools, marketing vendors. Many of these providers are already using AI, sometimes without clearly disclosing it. So your company may be sharing data, receiving outputs, relying on decisions that are generated by AI systems you don't control and may not fully understand. That's the fundamental risk that we face, just like any other third-party risk that we've talked about in the past 20 years. So, why does traditional due diligence fall short? Well, most third-party risk programs focus on data security, financial stability, legal compliance, cybersecurity risks, but they don't ask, how is this vendor using AI? And that's a major gap because AI introduces risks that traditional frameworks were never designed to address. A lack of transparency, bias, data misuse, or intellectual property issues. So the old approach of checking the box or ignoring the risk is just not going to be sufficient. So what are the major third-party AI risks that we face? The first, data exposure. Vendors may input your data into AI systems, sometimes even public models, without adequate controls. Second, black box risk. You may not know how the AI works, how decisions are made, or whether outputs are reliable. Third, bias and discrimination. If a vendor uses AI in hiring or customer decisions, your company could face liability. Fourth, regulatory exposure. Regulators are increasingly focused on accountability across the value chain. And fifth, intellectual property risk. Who owns AI-generated outputs? Are they infringing on third-party rights? These are complex issues, but now they're part of everyday vendor relationships. So how do we enhance our due diligence system? What should we do to make sure we're identifying these risks, documenting these risks, and then mitigating those risks with appropriate controls? So first, let's talk about upgrading our due diligence process. Basic questions that we have to find out the answer to. Does the vendor use AI? What data does the vendor process? Are public or proprietary models used? And what controls prevent data leakage? How are the outputs from the third party validated? And has bias testing been conducted? These are not just optional questions anymore. They are essential to understanding your risk with regard to specific vendors. Obviously, this will vary depending upon the vendor and the type of services or goods that they're going to provide, or how exactly they integrate into your business operations. So due diligence helps us to identify specific risks and confirm the absence of other risks. And due diligence then is only the first step in the process. You may also need to address AI risk in your contracts. Key provisions include restrictions on use of your data, prohibitions on using your data to train their AI models, the vendor's AI models. Audit rights now may include AI issues, data use, and compliance with representations that are made in your contract. And that reminds us that we have to include compliance representations, that there's going to be a broad compliance assurance with regard to the use of AI, and of course, indemnification. And importantly, there has to be prompt disclosure obligations if AI use changes over time. This is not a steady state. This is a moving, ongoing target that has to be updated regularly, and there has to be a requirement placed on the vendor for notification purposes. Ongoing monitoring is also going to be important. Many programs already fall short in ongoing monitoring of their third parties. And now, if we add in AI use, a vendor that doesn't use AI today may deploy it tomorrow. So we may need periodic certifications as to the use or non-use of AI technology by a vendor, reassessments of high-risk vendors that use AI, and integration of AI issues into our hopefully existing audit processes. And this is not a one-time exercise. So to operationalize this, we have to take various practical steps. First, we have to update our third-party risk policy to include AI technology. Two, we have to enhance or add to or edit our questionnaires. And when somebody gets questionnaires, there may be workflow modifications that have to be made, but the substance of our questionnaires is going to have to change. And we're going to have to train procurement and legal teams and compliance teams with regard to the issues that come up and how to deal with these issues. Our contract templates will have to be revised to include appropriate provisions like we just spoke about earlier. And we should always prioritize and focus on high-risk vendors. And the reason is we have to tailor our mitigation responses to those high-risk situations that need to be addressed. These are practical steps that can significantly reduce exposure. So the bottom line is this: you are not just responsible for your use of AI. You are responsible now in many cases for how your vendors use AI when it's done on your behalf. You're not going to, and that's a key phrase because we recall that from the FCPA and bribery, when a third party acts on your behalf. And that may help to mitigate many of the risks, but that's a tricky legal issue that you have to definitely focus on in terms of assessing risk. Companies that fail to address this risk are essentially outsourcing liability without realizing it. But those that act now by integrating AI into your third-party risk management programs will be far better positioned to manage compliance and protect their organizations over the long haul. Thanks again for joining me on Corruption, Crime, and Compliance, and we'll see you next time with another episode.